Have you ever wondered how things are made? We're all extremely curious, but few truly understand where our food comes from and how it's grown. Produce is the primary building block of all we consume. Better ingredients equal better quality and taste. At Brand Secrets and Strategies, you learn how to save valuable time and money, where you learn strategies to get your products on more store shelves and into the hands of more shoppers, empowering brands and raising the bar. Welcome. As an industry, we do a really good job of communicating the value of our products, this simple product. But I think one of the things that makes natural is being able to break food down into its individual components. What I'm talking about here are the ingredients. What are the ingredients in your product? What's unique about them? How do they differentiate your product from other brands, etc.? More importantly, how did those products align with the mission and the values of the consumer you're trying to build your product for? It's one thing to say that your product is either natural, non-GMO, or something like that. It's entirely different to be able to stand behind your label and say that our product only uses regenerative agriculture. To be able to say not only is it your product gluten-free, but it's also allergy-free, and then point to and stand behind that. My point is this: as an industry, we're creating the products that customers want, know, like, and trust. If they can align with their mission, their values, your customers' values, align with the value of the founder of the brand itself, then that increases the connection that your product makes with the consumers that are going to buy it. More importantly, it also increases the trust and the authenticity that people have for your brand, the belief and the perception that customers have. This translates into a significant competitive advantage. That needs to be celebrated in this industry. More importantly, this is a competitive advantage that you need to be able to leverage with retailers. In other words, how do you help the retailer understand the value of the product beyond the four corners of the package? You do that by being able to communicate everything we've just talked about. That's what this podcast episode is about. The reason I started by breaking down the ingredients is that I believe that the produce section is the gateway to the entire store. In other words, when you look at the ingredient panel on most packages, out there somewhere in the ingredients is tied back to the produce section with any retailer. This is precisely where I think the conversation needs to begin. The conversation helps introduce your product to your customers to be able to show them what's in your product, and then again help you stand out on a crowded shelf by demonstrating the values and clearly communicating and articulating the mission to the end consumer. As always, I want to thank you for listening. This show is about you and appreciation for you. There's always a free downloadable guide for you at the end of every episode. I always include one easy to download, quick to digest strategy that you can instantly adopt and make your own. One that you can use to grow sustainable sales and compete more effectively with. And don't forget to go back and listen to previous episodes where I may solve some of your most pressing bottlenecks. You know, the things that keep you up at night? This podcast is about you and it's for you. Remember, the goal here is to help you get your product on more store shelves and into the hands of more shoppers. Oh, and don't forget to go check out my new YouTube channel. On the YouTube channel, there are shorter episodes where I may share illustrations to illustrate what I'm talking about on the podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you'll be the first to get new brand building content as soon as it becomes available. Now here's Chrissy with Chrissy Farms. Chrissy, thanks for coming on today. Can you really start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey to Chrissy Farms?
Oh gosh, thank you for having me. What a pleasure. Started my food industry career probably, I guess, the day I was born, right? From my very first bite and kind of just became a foodie, I feel like, from the moment I was born. It was just in my DNA. So I live here in Southern California. I'm in Newport Beach, California. My first, call it, big girl job was with Marie's Salad Dressings. And so that was in the produce department. And I was doing a lot of fresh salad dressings. And it was just a great lifestyle. I love the people in the food industry. And right when I found myself in the food industry, I was like, this is where my heart and soul and family and friends are. So that's where I stayed and travel across the country and even across the world. The food industry has brought me to amazing places, touring all kinds of facilities and factories and meeting new people from Germany and Mexico, and most recently I was in the Dominican Republic. So yeah, I really love to dive deep when it has anything to do with food, from the nutrition to the processing, and it's fun. It's like my hobby and my passion, and so that's what I've been doing. And then for the last 10 years, I have a little nickname called the Guacamole Queen, because prior to Chrissy Farms, I was selling a lot of guacamole. So I remember in the Midwest, people would say, "What is this? Is this baby food?" And because it's kind of mushy and whatnot, and they just weren't familiar with guacamole. Obviously, 10 years later, that's changed a lot, and but I had some very funny discussions with retailers and buyers throughout the year, and most recently, occasionally there's folks that just don't want to taste guacamole, but to my surprise, they're tasting baby food, which is cracking me up, and having a lot of fun with it. So the purees have been a nice transition from my guacamole life into fresh fruit and produce purees. So yeah, I have one cute dog, a little Scottish Terrier, and love the beach and the mountains, and just kind of blessed with all those kind of good things. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you for sharing. And by the way, guacamole, that's my favorite baby food. No, I'm serious. I love that.
Right?
That is funny that you had to educate retailers on what that green slop was. And yet,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm in Colorado, so we're kind of close, but very, sort of
Sure.
a lot of ethnic foods. And guacamole is a mainstay. I love that stuff. I can't imagine people not knowing what
Right.
it is. So
It
that's,
is funny. Like actually, me and the retail buyer still get a little giggle about it, and seeing where that the growth of it coming to this time. It's fun to have been a big part of driving the sales and making those bigger sets, and in the stores, and they were really surprised about how far it came so fast, and how far the category has to grow. And that's really when I realized that sort of that fresh, value added, easy way to use, call it mashed avocados. I'm like, 10 years ago, I thought we need some purees, like we to really kind of do some more of that ready to eat. So really the seed of Chrissy Farms was dropped in my mind 10 years ago. So it wasn't an overnight idea. It was definitely, it's always been right next to my side, and something, every trade show I walked into, I would look to see if somebody might be doing something like my idea. So I don't know if that probably happens to your listeners too, when you have an idea and you just want to try to be first to market, and or try to do it a little better, so, or different, or differentiation. And so I thought there was a big opportunity at this time in my life and career to and my friends and family said, when are you going to do Chrissy Farms? So I'm like, okay, sheesh, I guess now, right? Like, there's no time like the present. So I had a lot of inspiration and support from the industry, as well as my circle of people. So that's nice.
let's talk about what is Chrissy Farms. Because I love the way you're tying all this together. It's so relevant because I don't think people understand or appreciate why what you're talking about matters. So, what is Chrissy Farms? You talked a little bit about how you had an idea. Can you expand upon that? And then why does
Sure.
this matter to you, to the industry, et cetera? Or why should it matter?
This is a bigger, the conversation has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The more, at first, it was just kind of a way to boost veggie and intake and have a premium product and clean ingredient. And so the mission was more originally about just being able to boost fruit and vegetable consumption, and having a more whole real life, and how do we make it more accessible and easy. I travel a lot, and I don't always have fresh fruits and vegetables ready to go in my refrigerator, but yeah, or if I do, they kind of aren't so fabulous anymore. And so this is a way to kind of keep accessibility for all ages and a lot of uses to that. So that's kind of how it started. And of course, having great baby food, because I know a lot of my friends and family, and want to mash and smash, and use the grinder and all that, but it gets messy, and sometimes you just run out of time with busy life. So Chrissy Farms was a way for those shoppers to, when, in a pinch, or just augment that healthy food process where the carrots taste good and it doesn't taste like chlorine or bleach or overly processed. So it was just based on simple purees that really would be a great thing for kiddos and get them on the right path. But we use them for our cocktails and mocktails. I mean, we're making some great appetizers. Vegans love it because you can replace eggs with like a pear puree or apple puree. And so I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I have some vegan friends. I never thought about what do they do for egg substitutes. Well, they use purees. And so I thought that's really awesome. Then it went on to more stories about how some children and kiddos don't like vegetables. Well, this is easy. You can, just pour a little carrot puree in your spaghetti sauce and you've instantly given, carotene and all these beautiful like vitamins in your, bolognese sauce. And so without, seeing things that may scare kids or they want to push away, you could even probably dump in our baby greens in there and, just get that beautiful nutrition for that. So from the food edge, it made a lot of sense. Then I started talking, which really excited me, to a lot of my growing partner friends, the people that were growing carrots and growing kale and spinach. And I found out a lot about, there's a big spotlight on food waste, not only in my refrigerator here at home, but just in the production side. And what can Chrissy Farms do to capture, make it a win-win for our farmers, for our consumers, and for the climate and the environment. So all of a sudden, what was kind of a mission that was a little more narrow focused became much broader. And then, which led me into hearing about the bee issue and that we're having a hard time, with bees surviving and pollinating all of our fruits and vegetables. So then now we're on a bee mission. So it's just been a ton of fun and been a full circle opportunity to support a lot of missions and passions from the farmer, sustainability, great nutrition, and really for eating solutions for all ages over the help of some yummy purees. And so that's kind of, it's funny, if you would have talked to me 6 months ago, this answer would probably be a little bit different, but I'm just really excited about those conversations that we're having with growers. Our products are made in the Central Valley of California. So we're up and down that corridor, vegetable highway, I guess you would call it. So that's really wonderful too. So it's great for the opportunity to give back and just make the world a little better place for what I can and my team can do together. So yeah, and of course retail partners and buyers. So yeah, I'm all of a sudden I'm like really excited about so many more aspects of the business that was supposed to be, on one mission, but now I have 10 missions around it. So yeah, it's good.
Well, I love your passion, love your enthusiasm, and this is why I wanted to talk to you. I first heard you talk on the Produce Moms podcast, and I really fell in love with what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. I didn't know about all these other things. There's a lot to unpack here. So if we go back a little bit, one of the funny things, you'll get a kick out of this. I could not get my daughter to eat tomatoes, and yet her favorite food group was ketchup. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, you know exactly where I'm going. And so like, that is not a food group. It's made from, but no, tomatoes are bad for you. It's like, nah, not good. But the point is this, I think we do a lousy job as an industry of educating people about the value of healthy nutrition. And where I want to go one step further is the quality of healthy nutrition. In other words, if I eat some produce that's been sitting in the produce section of any store that's been there for a while, probably not as good, especially mainstream processed, fertilizers and whatever on it. But if I pick something fresh out of the ground, especially something that's organic, etc., then that tastes so different. And if you eat this kind of way on a regular basis, the flavors are so intense. I think we forget about that. So can you talk a little bit about that and why that's important and why you're trying to capture that lightning in a bottle or in a package?
Right. No, I thank you for that question because we did a lot of call it taste panels on baby purees or baby food. I guess I feel like there's baby food and maybe baby purees, and they're very call it quite different. And I didn't realize the difference was so drastic until we opened up like a billion jars of baby food items out there, and we stuck spoons in it and we gave them a score from, I think, 1 to 5 and brought in we did our own individual one. And then we brought a bigger team because we thought, maybe we're a little biased. So we got, a bigger spectrum of opinions. And it was really shocking to know what is out there from a taste and experience. One of the, without mentioning any names, one of the best selling carrot purees, on the market, I'm still like just really shocked. We took a bite and I really thought maybe they didn't clean their equipment out because it had sort of a bleachy sort of, or chlorine sort of flavor to it. Nothing like a carrot, nothing like it didn't resemble a carrot. And in fact, and I was like, I was kind of like scared to eat a second bite. Like, is this dangerous? Like, is this good for me? What happened? I really did think it had something to do with some cleaning agent of sorts in the processing equipment. Turns out through like some investigative situations, I found out that if the carrot isn't properly grown and harvested with enough sunshine and all of those sort of things, a carrot will create like a natural enzyme that has a very chlorine bleachy flavor. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, here I thought I was, I think it's called like turpentine or, oh my gosh, I'll have to follow up on a website. I'm not very good with like chemical names, but yeah, I was really surprised that it was a natural effect. But that's where Chrissy Farms comes in, and we do our sensory tastings before we ever put it in any sort of bottle or anything, because we need that bricks to be right, and we want the flavor to really be like what you just picked. It's like that organic produce right out of your own garden in your backyard. Or in my case, I had a grandma with a farm. We used to pick carrots. And so, yeah, like that's how it's supposed to be. And so sometimes I think in this fast world of production, I don't know. I think sometimes the food scientists and I hate to say it, but the CFOs and people really watching the bottom line and maybe haven't been watching a little bit more about that sensory experience and giving enough value to that. And I do feel like there's a shift coming, or it is here and it has been coming, but it always feels like it's not fast enough for all of us in the, foodies and passionate food people. But yeah, so I did see a tremendous opportunity to set the tone for children's taste buds to enjoy produce. So, we wonder why they don't like it. Maybe they had, some kind of icky experiences, like it without us even knowing it, thinking we were all doing, just a great thing. Because as your little body's trying to figure things out, you want it to figure it out with the best experience. And so I really do believe our 6 purees set a great tone for little ones. Yeah, so having a produce, natural food, organic focused life. So yeah, that's a big part of the mission. But, after going to the recent discussions with some retailers, they were like, Kristen, we love that, this mission, but we think that the appeal for these purees is much broader and much wider. In addition to different people, like I was talking about the vegans and flexitarians and kid boosting and cocktails for us adults and mocktails for just kind of having crafty, cool beverages is great. There was also even soft eating diets some people are on. And I feel like, sometimes there's not, unfortunately, I think there's a lot more people on soft eating diets that we're really just don't even think about. And, having opportunities to give pleasant experiences during those tough times or, that I like that too. So it's really like a whole life, ready to eat puree solutions for all different things. So the versatility and the broad appeal is really exciting to me.
Which I think is so critically important. Thank you for sharing that. When I first tried baby foods when I had little kids, they didn't taste anything like what the can said, or the bottle, or the jar, or the whatever, okay? And certainly
Right.
I don't want to pick on any brands. And then to go one
Yeah.
step further, if it said apricots, what was all that other stuff in there? Why do we have preservatives?
Right.
Why do we have. And the point being is that you got to wonder where this stuff comes from. And I think part of what you're experiencing as well is that they're using parts. In other words, not the
Mm-hmm.
orange part of the carrot. And I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things end up there that don't necessarily need to be end up there. And I unfortunately, like a lot of people, I always wondered, can kids taste the difference? And
Mm-hmm.
the answer is obviously they can. So the point being is, yeah, this stuff matters so critically. So this stuff matters so very much. So thank you for sharing that. So when you're talking about the other uses, this is something I'm really curious about. I started years ago using some of those purees or some of the different baby foods or fruits or whatever to augment my diet. In other words, I didn't necessarily have the time to go get a fresh carrot or apple or something like that. And I didn't, I'd buy it from the grocery store, but I couldn't eat it quick enough or I didn't have it
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. So I like the grab and go sensation or the capability. Can you talk about that and why that matters and how you're trying to fill that space? And by the way, I agree with the retailers. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity to expand the use cases for what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Actually, it was funny. Uh, Talking about what you mentioned, there's a friend of mine in the food industry on the East Coast. I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, and he's like, Kristen, before I work out, and he's like super fit and healthy, he does like CrossFit and, total maniac in terms of working out. And he was saying that he just loves dipping into like a sweet potato puree or carrot puree or fruit to kind of give him a boost before workouts, like too, so he doesn't feel like so bogged down. So I'm like, oh, that's so funny. Like I have this macho man like saying that, he loves my like the purees for his active lifestyle. And so yeah, like it's really fun to hear different people's stories and their usages and their enthusiasm for having this, kind of quick, ready to go puree. So yeah, and I have to uh, admit too, sometimes my husband, we don't have a lot of food in our fridge for some reason, but yeah, he'll go down and he'll take sweet potatoes and just eat a whole 4 ounce cup of our thing. Like that's his like snack. And it's like a guilt-free snack. You feel like, and it just tastes so delicious. And you feel like it was you feel just as satisfied as eating a Snickers bar. I'm like, wow, my husband's really kind of changing his tone here. He's like turned into Puree Man or something. So yeah, it's really fun to see that the broad appeal of them. And of course my girlfriend has a friend that's a bartender, and he's making a whole bunch of new exciting drinks like that have coming out. So we're going to do a recipe kind of sort of um, site or kind of situation where each flavor will have like a drink, appetizer, a breakfast, a muffin. We're going to do a whole bunch of per the 6 flavors, like different recipe ideas for various different ages and things that we can do. Obviously, with kiddos, we do some sorbets and stuff like that, which is kind of fun too. And yeah. So it's we're just having a ball with all the different ideas. Back to the mocktail cocktail, a friend of mine does edible flowers, and so this weekend we were playing with all these cute, some of these savory cocktails that they're doing right now that we're able to use the carrot and sweet potato. So all these things are super healthy, and I think I recently saw like some of the top 10 trends for 2020 includes like low or zero alcohol content drinks. So people are really kind of thinking about kicking it up a notch from sort of the flavored sparkling waters, but how do we make these sort of non-alcoholic beverages more crafty? And that's a lot of fun. So we're making spritzes and punches and different things like that with some of these like crafted zero alcohol beverages. So yeah, it's like perfect for that sort of thing too. So yeah, it's just like that would just added a whole nother dimension of about usabilities that is has a spotlight on it right now. So yeah, it's
Well, I
good.
think that's great. And on that note, I used to take them on backpacks and backpacking trips with me, or on my bike when I get a long ride or something like that. They were great to dip into, and they were a lot easier and a lot more convenient than carrying an actual, whatever it was, apples, etc. Because an apple's kind of a weird shape, and you can't put as many of them in your backpack, but you can stack those, some of the pouches and some of the other containers pretty easily. But one of the things I
Yeah.
loved about it is, like you said, getting back to real food. So when you're talking about real food, let's talk a little bit more about why that's important to you and how did you get that bug? How did you become so interested in real food versus what other people sell?
It just, gosh, I think probably like a lot of people, it may start with your your mom or your family experience. And I was really fortunate to have kind of, and actually my dad too. We were just, oh my God, we were always just going for the best of everything. I mean, there were years maybe we didn't have a lot of money, but we were getting the best food. So it
Hmm.
was always like the where we put a priority on our finances, like as a family, was always to top quality. Like you just wouldn't find snack wells in our house. We would always, or even non-fat milk. I mean, we were always just doing whole foods, whole butters. And to this day, I definitely just feel like it's just not as enjoyable when you're somehow I feel like I have real coffee. I don't do decaffeinated. I just feel like the more whole foods that have been less manipulated, just feels like it's to me what our body enjoys more. It just feels that way, and that's maybe just my body. But so I think it started with that, where I was just like kind of always looking for the best, and then surrounded by produce. And in the produce industry, they used to say 5 a day, but now that was too vague about like what is 5 portions a day and how big are their portions. So now the theory is to have half the plate be produce. And so when I think of half of our plate to be a produce item, sometimes that could be hard to figure out how to do that. And so that was the other thing I really thought this just gives those other opportunities to kind of, you know, pack more produce into every, even with our holidays, it just seems like there's more produce items or produce type products than anything. So I've just always, it's just always come very natural. Maybe being here in California, that may have a little bit of something to it too. I know you're in Colorado. I bet there's a lot of fruits and veggie focus up there too. Um, and then working in the produce department, all the colors, and I just have like, I'm just drawn to the miracle of the food growth and whatnot. So it's just been such a very natural, um, yeah, I guess I'm a geek like that.
No,
So,
that's good. That's really good. And I love Huntington Beach. Used to spend a lot of time there. I love the culture in Colorado. It's second to none. No offense, but I love it. So, but to your
I
point,
know.
it's about, the healthier lifestyle and all that kind of things. And not to say that other communities and cities don't do that, but I used to travel a
Right.
lot. And I remember there was one place I went for a week working for Kimberly Clark, and we went to one of their just offside of their headquarters, and the lunch that they gave us was hamburger soaking in grease, and I mean it was disgusting. But it's because I kept wanting real food. Anyhow, I digress.
Yes.
But the important thing is that as we're talking about this, you made the comment that maybe it's you. No, I think as an industry, we don't do enough to help people understand and celebrate what makes sense, what good, real healthy quality food means. And what I mean by that is we have so many quick and easy solutions out there, in quotes, that really mask the importance of quality food. Getting back to the carrots again, eating a carrot
Hmm.
fresh out of the ground that's organic, regeneratively grown, etc., that is dramatically night and day different than eating a carrot that was sitting in a produce section in a store that was produced under normal, the traditional ways.
Hmm.
And as a
Hmm.
result, I think we dumb down our taste buds. We dumb down our
Yeah,
sensory. I mean, a carrot actually
I
smells
agree.
good. But if
Yeah,
you smell the
yeah.
carrot, like to your point, I used to work as a grocery manager, and I
Oh, okay.
didn't like the smell of the produce, but I liked this anyhow. So my point is that there's so much more to food than just the way it tastes, the way it smells, the way it looks, and everything
Yeah,
else. And I think those are some of
yeah,
the things we need to celebrate. So that's again one of the reasons why
absolutely.
I wanted to have this conversation with you. And so as you're talking about that, you made the comment about whole foods. I've always said that if you are what you eat, then what you eat matters, meaning if you can provide your body with the proper nutrients, even at a little bit more for organic, you're actually spending less in the long run. You're giving your body what it needs to succeed, what it needs to thrive and grow. Whereas
Mm,
if you eat the other stuff, you can eat a lot of it and you're not getting that satiation. You're not getting filled up and you're actually depriving yourself of the nutrients. That's why we're so dependent on supplements, most of
yeah,
which do little or anything to help us grow or help our bodies
absolutely.
achieve that. So your thoughts?
Oh my gosh, I'm so with you. In fact, I can't help but from personal experiences, which I'm sure a lot of us folks listening to this have had, that there's just so much. I've really seen the one-to-one miracles that happen when what you eat with your food changes the trajectory of your physical activity, your mental activity. Your actually, I've seen people that good friends that had situations that medicine was not helping them, but their diet changed their health. I mean, their everything. I can't tell you. And I know there's a little bit of a movement about um, food is medicine, and seeing is believing, and I have seen food impact people's health more than medicines. Not to say that medicines are not great when it is, but I just think we can't ignore the power of food and for our overall health and how it can put you on the right direction or give you a better chance of having a feel good life, which is really what it is all about. We all want to, be at our, happy life and feel good and farm food families. I really do think that if we make good choices on, they always say you are what you eat. But for some reason it means as I get older, it means more now than it used to. Yeah, I was just a saying, but now I go, oh, that saying actually meant something. Yeah.
It's true.
And it's cool to see that impact. Be it lower sugars or less sodium and no additives and no preservatives and all these things. There's a few friends of mine that their diet, they're in trouble because I said, what happened? You're such a healthy, good looking person and you look fine. And they're like, but inside I have been growing up on foods and products that haven't been good for my stomach and my intestines and all these different things. And so now, you know, is it too late? I mean, they're doing better, but yeah. So I just like to think that, the more we can, as a industry and community, just put a spotlight on, mindful eating, I guess, is really, what I would like, if I really think of it. And not that we don't all, have our silly moments, and that's fine too. But yeah, just that our silly moments are not our mainstay. And I really felt like having produce purees just kind of gave more of an opportunity to figure out how to do more fruits and vegetables in our recipes and our diets, make it more accessible than some of the other things out there. And now even like with the even where we're playing with the purees is kind of like a produce spread and a produce butter, and which has been really fun too. Kind of a little play off that avocado toast. We've been making some really neat crostinis with like a gorgonzola and pear puree, and on some of our charcuterie. Sorry, a little something popped up. Yeah, so it's just so much. So we're just really excited about all the different directions that these healthy purees are good and good for you. Really hitting on so many different sensories, kind of mind, body, soul. So yeah,
Well, I think that's
food
great.
should be fun too.
Well, it
Yeah.
should be, and it should be an important part of that. You made the comment you were talking about 5 parts per day or half a plate. That's one of the reasons, like you said, mindful eating. That's why this podcast exists, to teach brands like yours and everyone listening how to leverage that at retail. Because the reality is, instead of being a commodity like so many other products out there, you're driving real value to the retailer shelf. You differentiate your product, your ability to drive that unique customer that knows, likes, and trusts and understands the benefit of this to the shelf. So, a lot of the podcast episodes we've had, we talk about food as medicine. I'm glad you said that. A lot of people
Okay.
don't think about why this matters. Like Gary Hirschberg said, that it's a lot cheaper to spend a little bit extra to eat the right stuff than it is to pay a doctor to
Absolutely.
fix the problems you created. Well, and I want to go one
Oh,
step further. If
love that.
we it what thank you, and it's so critically, and we that's sort of a reoccurring theme. But I want to go one step further. My mission, Chrissy, is to make our healthy way of life more accessible by getting your products on the more store shelves and into the hands of more shoppers. Now, the reason that matters is supply and demand. If I can make what you're doing more accessible, then it's going to eventually be cheaper. Organic farming isn't horribly expensive compared to regular farming, as a lot of
Mhm,
people believe. It's actually better
mhm,
for you, it's better
mhm.
for the planet, all that other stuff. But there's a
Sure.
myth out there, and then all the layers of cost involved in terms of getting your product on the shelf. That's why there's a stigma to it. So if we can
Mm-hmm.
help lower that by giving you a significant competitive advantage, that's where I come in. But let's go one step
Awesome.
further. If we could help the industry, the world, etc., understand the value of the healthy nutrients that you're making available to kids, to people, etc., that's the goal at the end of the day. You made the comment about produce spread. I know we're kind of bouncing around a little bit. I
Sure.
love that idea. I think that's great. I use a lot. I would use more produce if it was easier to use. And what I mean by
Mm-hmm.
that is produce is seasonal. And
Mm-hmm.
so being able to get fresh quality, good stuff different times of the year, sometimes it's difficult, especially when you live in a climate that doesn't necessarily support that, like Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
how would you recommend consumers, brands, etc., let's put it this way, how would you recommend retailers better support the customers that they're serving with products that provide that kind of value in terms of getting away from the seasonality?
Oh, gotcha. I think it's a balance, right? And I I think there is somewhat of a beauty about, following that, cherries and peaches and when those things are happening. But I do just think that those are just kind of fun when they're having it, when they're tasting the best, when they're available. But then you can't just fall into all the seasonality. You really just have to really focus on making, some core basic produce items part of your diet every day, like in some way or another, in many ways. And so I think both are really valuable, and there's more and more varietals coming out in produce. I don't even know how many types of apples there are these days. Oh my goodness gracious. So, yeah, it is, there's a lot of new varieties coming out in every type of produce. But I really just say that even our pear, we actually use a combination of pears, we use a combination of apples, and we do that based a little bit on that seasonality, because when one maybe have a lower Brix, one has a higher Brix. And so just to kind of make it the most beautiful tasting apple puree, we don't just stick with the same, type of apple all year long. So, or the same pear all year long. I mean, if there's a pear that's coming in sweeter. And, I don't think we talked about this, but thinking about how all of our backgrounds kind of lead us to where we are today. I, prior to purees, a little bit with my last career as vice president of sales, one of the items that we took to market was cold pressed juices, and that whole cold pressed juice craze, right? Which is still the wild west, and there's a lot of products I love out there that do it, but it is crazy. So being, typically green juices sell the most, but we had a great watermelon juice, and everybody was like loving the watermelon, and it was delicious. It was fantastic. But the watermelon, sometimes we would find ourselves like without it because of Mother Nature, or it wasn't sweet enough. maybe because of Mother Nature, if it's hurricanes or whatnot. And so the idea is you can't just pack a watermelon juice or a puree just because it's the right type of fruit for what the label says. I mean, really, there definitely has to be some of these brick standards and stuff that are in place. And so I do have to give a little credit for my background of, having that kind of, I think, now that you and I are talking about it, I think that gave me a little, more sensitivity to making sure that we're just not packing fruits and vegetables in puree form, but we're actually making sure that it tastes great all year long, and not just kind of offering it because it's available, but only putting it in there and making sure that it's great. That's where science has kind of goofed things up a little bit earlier, because maybe if the watermelon didn't taste so good, they'd add sugar, right, to make it sweeter. So in this case, it's just, not an option. So if we just have to make sure that whatever we pack has the minimum, kind of sensory experience, or else it isn't something we would do. So yeah, no, great question though. And like you brought back a lot of like, oh wow, moments. I remember all these, juice recipes, and they'd be great like half the year, but then all of a sudden, things are out of season and things change. And then, and maybe you've had that experience in a cold pressed juice where all of a sudden it was like, I thought this tasted better than it did last time. And maybe that's part of the reason why the juice, category does have some challenges, because the same ingredients in the same varietals in the same, bottle, or it just won't taste the same unless, something different varietal or what may be more in season. So yeah, it gets kind of crazy. Mother Nature is not easy to deal with all the time, right?
No,
She's
no,
tricky.
no. Well, and thank you for sharing that, and thank you for adding that context. It's actually on my list wanting to go back to that. I love how creative you are, how you're able to understand this. And that's so critically important, because as someone's getting to know you and your brand, being able to understand how you're thinking through those things and how you're able to answer those questions. Again, that goes back to your story at shelf. How do you help the retailer communicate more effectively? One of the things that I think we talked a little bit about on our original call was that I believe that produce is the gateway to the rest of the store. And there are a lot of retailers that say, produce is number one. That's our most important department. However, they pay, in my opinion, a lot of lip service to it. There's a lot more than simply just putting a bunch of produce on a stand and say, here, come buy this. Here's a sign or whatever. I remember when they started putting pictures of the local farmers that produced it. I thought that was kind of cool. But
I
we're
love
still,
those stories.
those
Yeah.
are great, but we're still not doing enough. We're not doing enough to help people understand how the products
Great.
in the others beyond the produce section are usually made from or come from these
Yeah.
products right here. And I
No
think
one talks about it.
no, we
Yeah.
don't, and we need to do more of that. So that's one of the things I love about, as far as talking about all your missions, the fact that you're bringing in local, the fact you're talking about all of that, using your products in other mocktails and cocktails, etc. That's so cool. So you're expanding people's awareness. Chrissy, what else are you doing to help expand people's awareness around the importance of healthy produce?
I love that question, actually, and it's funny, even in terms of my whole career has been about, call it the value added produce, which is what the purees are. While I have a tremendous network of grower partners within the fresh produce department with the commodities and whatnot, there's a small set where it's value added. And that's where I feel like really my role and mission always has been, because if you're buying guacamole, if you're buying cold pressed juices, if you are engaging the easy, kind of things to deal with, you're shopping in a great space. And so you're surrounded by eat the rainbow and the rainbows of colors. And so I think while I, have a background selling salad dressings, it was going with the vegetable. It was going with lettuce. And so I always felt like my career and my mission was to, as with the purees, is to look within the grocery store, the entire grocery store, wall to wall, and how we can weave produce into all of our eating habits and more produce. I mean, that's what's so fun about all these recipes is really I'm taking ingredients from from all across the supermarket, but I'm making sure that, great tasting produce is weaved into it. And so that's what I've always kind of done is really added those complementary type of products to making eating healthy a little bit easier, but not getting and keeping it produce focused. So yeah, and it's funny, we were talking about half the plate. I had a few retailers laughing. No one seems to be listening to me right now, but I said, if we're supposed to be eating half the plate, it seems like the supermarket should be half the store, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and because it definitely is a very kind of small part of the footprint of supermarkets usually. I mean, it's big, but it's small in retrospect. But I think you have a really good point. Like, what can grocery brands or shelf stable brands do to talk about? I love seeing all these, like, chia and all the bars obviously have some just really good nuts and grains and all these wonderful things. But sometimes there is a big backstory about the farmer, about what it really means and where it's grown and how's it grown. And there's something very romantic about some of these ingredients that are part of these products within the grocery store, the entire grocery store, that comes from produce and from the farm and from farmers. And so yeah, I look forward to people doing a little bragging and spotlight on really where these foods come from as we look at traceability, as we look at sustainability. It's funny, you would think all these growers and farmers are shy. They must be, because no one hears from them. But I tell you, they are not shy. They're a very social, friendly bunch out there. And I probably, it definitely, I think there's a lot of, and many of them are from families and, just, fifth generation families. And I think, as people feel better about what they're eating, I think it would only help, to understand, how it just came about. It didn't rain from the sky. How did this really happen? The rain was sometimes a lot part of it, but there's so much more to it. And so I love what you're saying. And I think there's a big opportunity in our organic, natural, better for you type eating to really think about that, and maybe what we can do to celebrate the whole ingredients and the farmers and the growers that are behind it before it comes up in a package. So yeah, no, good point.
Well, absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. And this is why we have the podcast. This is why we're having this conversation. I believe, and in fact, this is what I do to help brands. This is what I believe brands need to do a better job of. In other words, I can go grab a jar of anything or a box or whatever it is off the shelf and take it home and eat it and consume it. Okay, great, no matter how good the product is. But yet, if I can develop a relationship with you, the owner, and understand your passion and your connection to those farmers, and I can understand the connection to not only the farmers, but the values that you put into all your products, why this is important, why you refuse to skimp, why you refuse to cut corners. Most consumers want to align themselves with that unique consumer. But yet, instead of our go-to-market strategy, instead of that, it's all commoditized. This is how much margin we need to squeeze out of one single flavor of whatever you're making, right? Instead,
Right.
let's talk about the relationship between
Love
your
that.
product, your customer, and the products that your customers buy over and above what they buy from you. So, for example, a new mom, a first child always, we always joke about this, especially when I work for Kimberly Clark, you spare no expense. Organic milk, not a problem. I don't care how much it costs. Fifth child, whatever. Anyhow, but we just tease about that. But my point is that
I was the
you,
first child, by the way.
oh, so you got all the good stuff. So did
Yeah.
I. But by the third child, it's like, what's a kid's name? Just kidding.
Right.
Um, but no, you know what I mean. But so
So
the point is,
yes.
if a retailer is smart and if they're paying attention, being able to leverage the relationship that you have with your customers and the value that you add to their customers, which are new moms, etc., and realizing that that is the most valuable customer they have in their
Yeah.
store, and that
Yeah.
customer, they can convert them from an occasional customer into a loyal evangelist. and then keep them or hope to encourage them or not invite them to go shop their competition. That's where I'm going with this.
Right.
That's
Right.
the opportunity. And I think that's what retailers really miss up. So
Right.
sharing your story is so critically important. What have you done to uniquely differentiate your message to retailers beyond your competition?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So I am a bit of a category disruptor, looking for purees that have never been featured in the produce department in the refrigerated section. And it's so funny because a lot of the inspiration to my surprise, I mean, to me, it feels like a no-brainer. We have diced prosciutto, we have it like zoodles and all these different forms and functions of further um, uh, produce in different ways. But there's no puree, so it seemed like just like a empty, easy gap. And I would say it's so funny that I feel that consumers and call it quick conversations, I don't have to say very much, and consumers just light up. Like they are so excited about it. They are so passionate. With retailers, I like always feel like I have to do a little bit more talking. Consumers, like they get the joke, they're like, this is exactly what I needed. And so like actually it's the consumers and the people like they really speak, and it is the power of their voices and their it really does, it really matters. And things like this, it's surprised me. I mean, I thought I had a good idea, but they just kind of further validate it. So fortunately with my career, I've been able to build these relationships with buyers where I love that the retailers though do challenge me. Like we were talking, I was thinking it was just baby food, and retailers said, Kristen, guess what? There's more than that. And I go, oh yeah, you're right. Good idea. So we're actually going to um, shift our label just a tad to have that broader appeal. So, what's the bottom line is really, it's beautiful to see people wanting people to win. And, I'm feeling the love and the heart, and you have to be a little bit not stuck in your ways and keep your ears open for like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about that. And so that's where I would say consumers right away, oh, I love this, I love this, I love this idea. But it's wonderful to have the retailers kind of go, yeah, but how about if you do that? And I'm like, oh my God, that was brilliant. So having that collaboration and those relationships with the trade and consumers, it's a big deal. So obviously the consumers they can help you so much before you're on the shelf, but then we'll have a lot of fun. And I always am a big fan of doing a lot of guerrilla marketing and creative things outside of, call it the TPRs and whatnot. But yeah, I just the whole idea about Chrissy Farms is about a lifestyle brand. It's about we're starting with purees, and I think there's a lot of really neat places that we can go with line extensions. But yeah, I think this is the perfect place to start from the first bite, and then we'll just keep going and going and going. And it's really nice to see consumers being so receptive. So, but we're at the ground level. But we're moving pretty fast. It's pretty fun. So that's kind of great. I don't have to do a lot of talking people into like the concept. So that kind of surprised me, and it is really special. So yeah, I almost feel like the stars just lined up, and I thought there would be a little bit more, call it hurdles or pushback, and it's been just the opposite. So yeah, it's nice. Yeah, it
Well, it's
makes
good to
sense.
hear.
But
Well, and I'm glad that
yeah,
retailers are starting to get on board. I mean, I was going to say it's a sad commentary about our industry that the retailers don't get what the consumers want, because the reality is that the
yeah,
retailers want to give the consumers the products that they want. I have a belief that
yeah.
retailers spend most of their time trying to sell us the stuff on their shelves rather than selling us the stuff we want to buy. So hopefully you can help change that conversation. So
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, and I guess it's using that word balance again. And there's just so many items obviously out there, but yeah, it's just like always have to constantly be kind of ahead of the consumer almost in a way, and not get too comfy, I guess, right? And call it current assortments or current offerings or what has worked, and what can work in the future. You're very right. It could be very different. So
Well, and the old strategies that worked for your great grandfather aren't going to work for you today. So your
no,
guerrilla marketing, we want to talk a little bit about that. But let's back up real quickly and talk about food waste and the bees. How do those fit into your mission? What does that mean?
wow. So, it's funny. I'm trying to think where I first started hearing about food. Well, let's even back up a little bit more. Um, I remember going into some retail appointments a few years back, call it, and saying, wow, we have this, we're really proud of I had a whole page on a deck about sustainability and about how we're getting rid of paper towels, about how our, different aspects of our waste where we're going into compost and making golf courses. And we had this whole big story, and all the expensive measures we were really taking to be a sustainable company. And like, we're so excited because we're like, we're going to be zero landfill, brand. And this is so awesome. So if you support us, you should feel good about, supporting a company that is making a smaller footprint. And there's, more and more food companies that are, using solar to power and stuff like that. And there were a time when it just seemed like the grocery industry was like glazed over. It was like that's a good way to make in the conversation or the presentation when you get to the sustainability page. It was like, okay, is it time to go now? Like, because it just was kind of a yawner. And it's kind of about talking about negative things, which isn't fun, right? Like, it's kind of a downer. And so usually in the sales process, it's about units and experience and all those things. Also, you get on a page about sustainability and you kind of want to cry, because you think of things that could happen. So it wasn't a great topic. That was then. This is now. And now, oh my gosh, it's a wonderful conversation to have about sustainability with retailers, and they are looking for it. They're excited about it,
Good.
and we're all on the same mission. And that's been really nice to be more, call it, aligned, and being a part of that shift is really it's easier sometimes than it looks, but habits, even in my own household, are hard to break sometimes. So, but as long as we know the right way, we'll start doing the right way all the time. And so with that, the food waste, I started seeing a lot, even on LinkedIn, for instance, a lot more information about various different companies and about, the staggering amount of food waste that happens on the farm. And you think, how in the world could that happen? It's like either a person or a machine comes by, it's ripe, you pick it, and there you go. But then, you start like digging a little bit deeper, and of course, retailers will, like, it happens at retail. At the farm, it happens, all along the path. You're just kind of losing, there's food waste, down to the consumer. So I thought, well, gosh, when I found out about, just beautiful, like, kind of fresh fruit, or almost call it ripe. When it's ripe, it's kind of too, like, maybe too ripe, or maybe it's too late. It missed a day. It's so sensitive about specifications, but they're perfect for purees. And so I was actually approached by a few different growers saying, we're trying to figure out, like, what to do with our great tasting produce that, just, it didn't work. And so they're really excited about doing the right thing for the environment. And so we're starting looking and getting more and more into those programs. So it's just the right thing to do. Especially, so like that, it is. And so I'm glad I'm part of that mission. The bees, that's the funny story. So I don't know, I hate bugs and spiders. I hate all that stuff. I shouldn't say hate, don't like, I guess is the better word. So I just don't like killing any bugs. I don't, even if they're like it just like breaks my heart. I don't like it. Maybe I'm a little Buddhist or Hindu or something, but every time I do, I just kind of, I get sad for the little guys. And so, so I've always tried to do that. But meanwhile, it always feels like people want to like kill the bee, you know, they don't want to get stung. And so, you know, by the pool and in life, I always feel like people are trying to, you know, kill hives, kill bees. And so it just always really bothered me. And then I found out, first I found out we had a butterfly problem. Then I found out we had, you know, not enough butterflies. And I found out we had not enough bees. And so I thought, well, this is a really good opportunity, you know, as we don't want to be using artificial ways to pollinate and all these different things. We want to keep more to nature. Well, the only way we can keep more to nature is if we keep nature happy. And so so that is, I just we do something called the Bee Love Project, and it basically is just about spreading kindness and love to bees and to be a little bit more thoughtful. If you have a beehive, there's definite ways to relocate them without, you know, doing mass murder on the poor little bees. And so there's just a different way to approach and solve the, you know, what may feel pesky, but bees are important. And so the Bee Love Project is something that we're doing various different things with little children, and we did some things at the Orange County Fair recently about spreading some bee awareness, and made some beeswax candles, and we all found the queen bee, and just having a lot of fun and really just kind of giving a more warm and loving idea about bees. And then they just kind of have a bad reputation. So I'm helping kind of spread a good reputation that kind of helps help our food chain and supply and make flowers and produce prettier. So yeah, that's kind of what it's about. I know it sounds kind of a little silly, but that's the story.
No, that's great. I appreciate the fact that you're bringing that education. You know, people don't understand. No bees, no humans. It's that simple. It's that black and white. And we need to understand that, you know, when you're talking about produce, the stuff that just doesn't pop up in the ground. Something's got to fertilize it. There's a lot more involved than simply putting a seed in the ground. You got to put water on it. Well, what is the quality of the water that you're adding in? What is the quality of the soil? Anyhow, that's a whole nother conversation. But bees
Yeah,
are
right.
critically important to that. So thank you for sharing that. And back to the food waste thing, I was hoping you'd say that. I used to work, as I mentioned, as a grocery manager. The amount of produce that we used to throw away, staggering. It would make you sick
Mhm.
to think about what we
Yeah,
wasted at that level. And the
right.
sad part is people don't understand that. And so I remember years ago, and I'm not a huge fan of private label, generic, etc. So I'm not trying
Me
to give
either.
it. No, I like the
Right.
branded stuff. I mean, you're doing all the work,
Me
yeah.
too.
So, but the notion that when generic products started, it was the ugly tomato that didn't make it into the can of the, you know, the
That's
branded
right.
stuff. And
That's
so
yep.
being able to reuse that is, I mean, it's perfectly good. It tastes perfectly good, but it
Yeah.
may not be perfectly round or maybe a certain color.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I'm
Exactly.
glad you're doing that. So thank you for
Yeah.
taking
I love
those
it
missions
too.
on. Well, it's
Yeah.
so critically important. How
It's
can we learn more about Chrissy Farms, and how can we get in touch with you and where can we find your brand?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, thank you so much. So we have a website, chrissyfarms.com, and Instagram, Chrissy Farms, and Facebook, Chrissy Farms. So I kind of got lucky. Chrissy Farms was very easy
Good.
handle and website to get, and I've been getting a lot of compliments on the brand, and yeah, so we're having a lot of fun with that. Right now, we're in some excellent negotiations. When we launched the program, normally items like mine value added would have two resets. One would be in the fall, and one would be in the spring, I call it. So we literally kind of raced to market to be in time for the Fresh Summit, the PMA Fresh Summit, which just happened last week. And so I've been rocking and rolling, kind of trying not to get too far ahead of our skis. But actually, it was really perfect. As mentioned, we're going to be making some small tweaks to to have the better offering. Retailers were just awesome. I can't tell, like they just stopped at my booth and they never left. And I just felt like the luckiest girl. There was 24,000 folks attended the PMA Fresh Summit, and the amount of quality time that I had over puree discussions or in our organic offerings was tremendous. So I've have a lot of takeaways from the show, and so we should be on the shelf maybe before the end of the year. So stay tuned. But yeah, I think we have a good Instagram. So keep following, and news blast will be coming out pretty shortly. So yeah, it's good stuff.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's one of the reasons, again, why I do what I do. I want to celebrate what you're doing. I want to be able to promote brands that are giving back, brands that are doing more. Back to my mission, if I can help you do more good, help you sell more, that enables you to do more good. So that's part of that alignment with your end consumer. If I can help the retailer understand why you matter, and because the consumer that gets it, then that retailer can understand that if they support you and they support your consumer, then they can help you do more good on their behalf. So
absolutely,
it's about rising the tide.
It's wonderful, and I feel it. And the first time we talked, I was like, "Wow, wait, have I known him all my life?" I felt like that. It was just it was just the most wonderful. It was just wonderful. So I'm really grateful that our paths crossed, and
thank you.
And I look forward to growing our missions together, and just love the alignment that we both have, and making all these things more obtainable for each other, and like you said, all the boats rising with the tide. So it's good.
Love that. Thank you. And on that note, I promised you that I would help you try to solve your most pressing bottleneck. So what can I help you with today? How can I help you grow whatever you need?
$1 million would be good.
I wish I had that. I'm already the hardest working volunteer in the industry. So what else can I just kidding.
I just couldn't resist.
No, that's a good answer. It's a good answer. I asked for it.
But I would say I love what you're asking, because manifestation and stuff like that. I mean, I really believe Chrissy Farms is a result of that, and I would just say you being you, and it just does so much as we kind of move through this together. I know you're amazing on category analytics, and so while I have a lot of kinds of the passion part, there's always kind of a balance to kind of fill in some of those blanks. And so I really look forward to continuing our relationship, and how we can present our mutual stories to the trade and the industry. Just making the world a better place together, and have it, it's all family, fun, food, farm, and it's just kind of, it's a good place to be, and it's great to be with you, and your support even today was awesome. I'll definitely I just remember, I don't know how this happened, but I think I have over 8,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I'm excited to post this one. This is, very fun. It's a great conversation, and it's great to review these things that are so important to us all. And hopefully I can be a help to inspiration to some listeners too, that may have some great ideas, and help bring great great items to the market. And again, we're all really blessed to have retail partners and people like you to help make dreams come true, and do good things for the world. So thank you for being part of that journey. So
thank you. I'm humbled. I appreciate your saying that. Thank you so much. That's why I do the podcast. I don't get paid for this. It's, it's not getting sponsored, but at the same time, it's about my way of giving back. It's about helping you succeed. Again, my mission is to make our healthy way of life more accessible by getting Chrissy Farms on more store shelves in the hands of more shoppers. That includes online. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your insights, and thank you for your passion and your enthusiasm. And thank you for sharing that with all of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope next time you're in Southern California, I hope I'm here too. We can grab a latte or a dinner together or something like that. Thank you so much.
That would be fun. I miss walking out on the pier.
We'll do that.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you to all your listeners too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chrissy. I'd like to thank Chrissy for coming on today and for sharing her story. So inspirational. I love it when brands go out of their way to create missions, to focus on missions that are so important to the customers they serve. I'll be certain to put a link to Chrissy Farms in the podcast show notes and on the podcast webpage. Thank you again for listening. Today's free downloadable guide is my simple solutions to maximize broker effectiveness. Remember, it's all about execution. How well your brand is executed on shelf. That begins with how effectively you manage both your internal and your external teams. That includes your broker. In other words, anyone who touches your product. This is one of my most popular downloads that I have, and you're going to want to check it out. Anyhow, you can get there on the podcast webpage and in the podcast show notes. And you can get there by going to brandsecretsandstrategies.com/session 150. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.